Hello everyone. Hello, this is SaugaTalks and Corazon Technologies here with Ingrid Vasiliu-Feltes. Hello everyone, happy Friday. I'm Irene. Brian Thomas with me here. And Ingrid Vasiliu-Feltes is our guest. Hello, how are you doing?
Great. How are you guys?
Wonderful, Ingrid. Thank you so much. Appreciate you joining us this Friday afternoon because Brian and I teaming up. We're going to be running this weekly Tech Talks on Friday afternoon. So it will be technology, it will be amazing experts, it will be amazing influencers, but also it's Friday. So we do want people to take a short break from their very busy week, but at the same time, hearing wonderful people just talking about things that excites us. Brian, how was your week so far?
It was amazing. I was able to complete 14 podcasts this week. So as you'll see later today, a lot of stuff going out. And I can't keep up with Ingrid, of course. She's just amazing with her content. So anyway, yeah, it's great. And talk about change. If you don't mind, I was on a podcast this week, and you won't believe this. So I was talking to a CEO that ran an electronics store, computers, technology, and he was doing fairly well, mildly well. And he said he had this center storefront, this building, this retail strip joint, and he had a vacancy on both sides. Actually, one had a furniture store or something. And then about a year into it, another company, a competitor, moved right in next to him, selling the same exact thing. And, his was, obviously an electronics store. Well, the gentleman that moved in the new entrepreneur, put on his storefront saying best electronics. But get this, the next, literally 2 months later, another competitor selling computer parts moved in next door to him. And it said instead of best computer parts was the other one, this one said the cheapest computer parts. And he didn't know what to do. He thought he was going to have to shut his store. But he said, with change comes thinking and innovation, right? So you know what he did? He told me at the top of his store, since he was in the middle, he changed his sign and it said main entrance. So
that's a very good one.
Anyway, that was my little joke for the day. Sorry. I like to kick off with a little funny. It wasn't too funny. We're going to have to get better at this, Irene.
Brian, this is main entrance to show here, so you're at the right place. Thank you for sharing this story. Dr. Ingrid Vasiliu-Feltes, as Brian mentioned, you're a dynamite of energy, of professionalism, and productivity. Ingrid, you are an entrepreneur, you are advisor to boards, you are executive influencer, you're speaking at conferences on multiple topics. So we're so privileged to have you here with us. How are you? How was your week?
Oh, my weeks are pretty much the same. Work, sleep, work, sleep, work, sleep.
What I found, Ingrid, that you're enormously productive author on top of everything else. I applaud, I admire how you do this all. I don't understand, but your latest article on Corazon Tech, the media company that Brian is running, your latest article is on quantum computing and the leap we all making to the fifth industrial revolution here. I wanted to pick up on this topic, Ingrid, because we hear the buzzword computers, quantum computers left and right. People still don't realize, what is the opportunity there. Can you talk to us a little bit? What is this mysterious animal, quantum computing, and how is it relating to what's next, fifth industrial revolution?
Sure. Well, thank you again for having me. And I do believe you're the power duo. I can't imagine any other better way to spend my Friday noon today. I appreciate everything that both of you do as well. So I'm a big fan, and I'm trying to support you every time I can online, although I am busy. Quantum, I've been very interested in quantum for a few years now. And for those of us that follow, many industries have actually invested quite a lot of brain power, money, research the last 10 years into quantum computing. And I would say you called it animal. It's gonna be the next generation animal that we're gonna have a lot around us, and it's gonna infiltrate and transfuse all disciplines. That's, I think, the key takeaway that I would like to share with our audience. The same way like now internet is everywhere, the same way like we have AI in our daily life, that's how we're going to have quantum. But for now, the main industries are space, energy, power, those large ones that had the scientific background and the money and the dedication to invest in it. But we will see over the next few years, life sciences, a heavy push towards quantum, and then also some of the other novel industries such as anything that's with technology-based material sciences. That's another great opportunity where we've seen almost every day nanotechnology, material sciences, and quantum are fusing together. So go ahead.
When we say quantum solace, okay, what do you mean by this big term? Again, we read sci-fi stories, right? We watch the movies, but solace, it's a heavy loaded term here. So could you please spell out, Ingrid?
It's true. Well, first I wanted to thank Brian and Corazon Technologies for giving me the opportunity to have an op-ed page. It's my first op-ed page ever. So I really appreciate that. And when we thought about the name, we wanted to, yes, have a heavy term because we do believe that quantum computing and next generation computing will influence the next era. And I do want us to be mindful and thoughtful about it and give it the weight it deserves in this digital economy, in the way digital society is evolving and digital culture, because I do believe it's going to be a heavy influence.
And Dr. Vasiliu-Feltes, thank you, by the way. I'm just going to interject. I want to let you know that some of your content that we published several hundred articles just in the last 12 months. And some of your articles actually are, I would say, trending, have some of the most views and downloads. So I appreciate your contributions, and your op-eds will be one of the most successful ones. And we have several, but yours is getting a lot of traction. So thanks for sharing that.
Thank you.
Fantastic. I'm not surprised. So Ingrid, you're concise in your writing. We will link the article here in this video for sure. You mentioning 6G and Internet 3.0. This is the future. Can you talk to us? What's the opportunity there?
Well, in that article, I wanted to point out what I've been pushing for the last 2 years, and I think we talked on our previous podcast about the convergence of emerging technologies is what's going to define this digital era and what's going to propel us in the next industrial revolution. And I do believe that there are certain emerging technologies that transcend industries, right, transcend disciplines, and that will, like we always say, slowly but surely infiltrate almost every device, every product, every activity that we're engaged in as a society. So I think when we look at 5G, we look at distribution globally. There are already countries that are hitting 55% of adoption of 5G. Of course, others haven't even started. But it's interesting to note that many companies are already working heavily on 6G. And so we haven't even finished adopting 5G. And there are clear benefits to 6G. When you look at the benefits of 6G and the opportunities that quantum affords, I think that's going to be like that magic mix that's going to allow us to leverage optimally the benefits of quantum computing and the possibilities that 6G affords. Now, not to mention that there are certain, like that's super just in the research lab, but there are already some that work on 7G and further that are going to complement what quantum can do as well. So I do believe that it's important when we think about quantum to think in a 360 way and understand how all these technologies will contribute, because each one alone can't make that leap, right? You need it all to work like in a tech ecosystem, because otherwise you can't deploy it and you can't benefit from each one of them maximum.
What about us humans? How do we feel, the things becoming faster, more accessible, definitely bombarding businesses, companies, individuals, right? Governments. Okay. So how should we feel about this at each level? Can you dissect for us?
So I think that's the difference, and why you call it an animal. I call it that abstract thing that's very tough to get your finger on, and I think most people will find it very hard to translate. Well, how is going to benefit me every day? But it's going to be that most large industries will adopt it on the back end, and then we just benefit from all the things we care about, like you said, like the speed of certain things, materials that before we could never have, ability to solve problems that have plagued society for millions of hours of work, right? And they couldn't crack the puzzle. So I do believe that it's going to be just a very slow creeping benefit. But at one point, it's going to be like, here it is. And I recently saw an interview with David Bowie when the internet just launched. I strongly encourage everybody to watch it. He was absolute genius. It's where he explains to people, you think this internet, because they were like challenging him. It was just when it had launched. And he told them, one day you'll wake up and the internet is going to take over. And that was like literally when it just started, when no one even wanted to believe in it. So I think the same way, several years from now, we're going to wake up one day and everything is going to be powered by quantum or 6G, or we're going to have IoT everywhere. So
we better be ready. Brian, yeah.
Oh, totally. I see it all the time. And what's really interesting, and this is kind of how it started, you better be ready. Dr. Vasiliu-Feltes was one of my first guests on my popular podcast. And she said at the time, you better be ready. And that's what I was really thinking, because as I have interviewed probably 250 people since Dr. Vasiliu-Feltes, I've touched just about 32 countries, dozens and tens of dozens of Silicon Valley executives that work in these emerging technology spaces. And I can tell you, I'm blown away. I went to MIT last year, but going forward, just this last, I would say 6 months, I felt like I got another degree in technology. I've learned so much just about the stuff that's out there that I thought I knew, and I really didn't. So thank you for sharing.
But I think that's, Brian, just if I may comment on that, that's what drives me. And that's how I ended up in all of this, because I'm so curious and I read one thing, but then I need to understand something in that article, and then I want to read another thing. And actually, when you look at quantum, every single day you find 2-3 new publications about novel research, like brand new that week, because now we have the luxury to get in touch with that research. So imagine the speed, the exponential speed that the research is advancing these days. Before, you could have one quantum article per year if you were lucky. Now, every day we come up with a new research development in quantum. Right. And I think what attracted my attention, just one more comment, and then I'll stop on this topic. But I noticed that a lot of governments were even investing heavily in the billions of dollars in quantum. That was already a year ago. So governments that usually don't like to spend money, if they invest billions of dollars in something, that's an indication. 2, even India, that was not a very top at that time in quantum, created 21 institutes dedicated only to quantum.
Wow.
Imagine 21 institutes. So what does that tell you when you create institutes, right? It sets the stage for the next, you don't create an institute for 1 year or 2 years, right? So I think these kind of signals show us that we're creating a global infrastructure that can handle quantum. And then the big technology companies that you all know and that I shared in the latest article have invested heavily in quantum. Not only for finance industry, but like we said, also aerospace and many other big life science projects. So
the best advice I received for the audiences out there, how to make ourselves a little more comfortable with all these fast pacing changes in front of us with Industry 5.0, is doing exactly this. Be in the know. I understand what's happening. Get resources and educate yourself and upskill yourself. This advice came from Lee Coulter. He was my guest last week. He is CEO of Transform AI. So Ingrid, what's your advice for people? How to adjust to Industry 5.0 realities with intelligent automation, with automation taking over mundane work? And yet we do have to, right? We have to earn, we have to spend, we have to make our lives better. So where is this, equilibrium?
I think you touched on it. The upskilling, I think, is key. Before, it was just if you were really already behind, or someone told you today that you need to invest in your education or in your skills. But I strongly recommend now looking 2 to 4 years ahead, because otherwise you'll always be behind. So I advise everybody to think in a more compressed time frame, and think agile, because I do believe that these days you think you're like at the top of your game today. Well, in a week, someone is going to already have skills that supersede you. And a great example was the teenager who won the World Gaming Championship at age 16. And he said that he's worried that next year a 10-year-old is his strongest competitor. And I think that's the type of mindset we need to have. These days, age doesn't matter anymore. You can have someone that's 8 that's gonna immediately take over your skills very quickly. So I think everything has changed. Mm-hmm.
We shouldn't get too comfortable, right? Wherever we are, however we are, at the same time, this is the era of enlightenment, the complete new revolution happening in front of our eyes, and we don't realize it, and we don't like change, right? Inside of us. I mean, we like the way things are, many of us, right? So Ingrid, what are the fantastic, I would say, shiny industry applications you saw? We know robotics moving like great cargos, they dance, right? We saw Boston Dynamic. We know how, again, fun it can be. At the same time, something like tangible, stories that we could remember, robotics that really help people, maybe in healthcare.
Well, in healthcare, we do have, if you want, and you mean quantum, just to be sure I understand the question, you want quantum and other. I think definitely if you want healthcare, I would say the flashiest that attracts a lot of attention are the brain-computer interfaces. And I want to caution everybody that although the Neuralink attracts most attention on social media, there are a lot of universities that are doing solid research on brain-computer interfaces that's FDA approved, IRB approved, like proper channels, and they do help a lot of people. Also in Switzerland recently, they helped a lot of people with spinal cord injury. So we're seeing more and more real applications that before were absolutely not possible and considered science fiction, that now with the appropriate, mindful, ethical deployment of technologies, these converging technologies, right? Where you have a little bit nanotech, a little bit AI, a little bit modern next generation computing, all combined, you can do things that before were not possible. Another flashy one, I just posted that yesterday. They just created an embryo out of skin cells, just like that. That's the modern application of genomics, which is the next frontier, right? Everybody knows that one of my passions is precision medicine. That was actually the first quantum article, right? The impact of quantum on precision medicine. And I do believe that we see extremely rapid advances in genomics and the application of AI, nanotech, and all next generation computing, not just quantum, right? We have DNA computing, cloud computing, edge computing, and quantum all together will exponentially increase our ability to apply a lot of research that was done over years, but was never combined and coalesced in a way that we are capable right now. And I think that's why we're going to see the fruits of all that hard work that many scientists and industry have done over the years to just finally kind of come to fruition, like a renaissance of the digital era.
Absolutely. Brian, anything you want to? Yep.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to add there. I think that's a great point. We talk about, for some of us that live in the geographic locations with 4 seasons, sometimes you skip over spring and all of a sudden it's, 100 degrees outside. And I kind of feel that we're going to skip the 4th industrial revolution and move to the 5th, at least faster than anyone would have ever imagined. Obviously, it's not going to be in a blink of an eye, but that is something that people need to be aware of and start immersing themselves in learning some of this stuff. But, I want to touch on this. I don't know how you do it, Ingrid. You're, and that's probably what Irene was going to ask next, a day in the life of Ingrid, but you're constantly speaking, you're constantly talking, you're on every committee I know of that is touching, fintech or healthcare or life sciences or quantum. And Irene, you want to add something there before we ask her the day in her life?
We can go ahead, Brian. I can always add something, so we can go ahead. Absolutely, great. Ingrid. Yeah. The way your reach is spanning across the continent and across the business functions even. So yes, go ahead, Brian. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just could you maybe explain a day in the life, Ingrid, of what you do? I know you get up at probably 3 a.m., but
this was the question I wanted us to skip because it's very boring to most people. But what I do love is I read a lot. I do read a lot. That's like going to be a big chunk. And I do exercise every day because otherwise I can't function. So those two are a must. And if I get a chance, I sleep a little bit. And if I get a chance, I eat a little bit. But I eat very healthy and organic. And I do like to connect with people. And that's one of the reasons why as upset as we all are due to the pandemic, but I think we all shared on various social media channels that it has also shown us that we can connect with people globally in a way that was never before possible. I mean, I used to travel a lot and I used to meet with a lot of people, but now I can be 1 hour with Irene, 1 hour in Australia with Dr. Thomason, and then 1 hour with someone else in India that we're working on a beautiful project for women economics. I mean, it has expanded the global reach so much that's why I feel like I don't want to miss this opportunity. So that's why you see a day in the life is pretty much sleep a little, eat a little, exercise, read, work, and go that repeat.
Rinse, what a day, Ingrid. No, fantastic. You know what? I speak with young people a lot, I should say, and I feel a lot of disillusionments, okay, what life promised them when they were in high school, maybe in college, and right after, you know, we talk about these changes, but they look at all us adults and thinking, yeah, guys, it was easy for you to start your life when you were fresh out of college. So, you know, speaking with experts like yourself and Brian and others, of course, I want to kind of send message out there, Ingrid, right? Where do young people, because I know you're teaching these days, so where young people should kind of frame their mindset, because it all starts right there. Mm-hmm.
Well, I have to admit I'm a tough teacher because I do not embrace that attitude that we had it easy, and I can certainly share some of my past. It's not easy at all.
Please. No, that's where I'm going.
I always share with young people that you have to, and I don't necessarily use the philosopher quotes, which are many bright people that mentioned it very sophisticated, but there's a very pragmatic one. Is you don't have to always focus on what you can't do, right? You have to focus on what you can do with what you have or with the cards that you were dealt with. And that a lot of bad things happen to people in our lives, but it depends how you react to it and what you're going to do with it, right? So I do not encourage them when they're like, oh, you had it easier or there's a pandemic. You can always do something. And actually, there are people who have made the pandemic, again, it's very bad that it happened, but they found ways to extract opportunities out of this situation and become very successful. So I do believe that in every situation we have to try to find what can we do to make it better? What can we do to prepare for whatever after is? And I don't like to use the term normal either. What's normal? Normal is relative, right? So, and if you compare normal in each country around the world, the normal was very different in many areas of the world, even pre-pandemic. So that's an excuse, in my opinion, and I hate to be a little bit more firm on that. But I do believe that you have an opportunity to still find things that you can learn, to connect with people, to improve yourself, to challenge yourself. So I do have a message to young people that don't use excuses, find things that will help you be successful in the future and find your passion, right? I'm a big believer in Ikigai. So you have to find whatever you're good in. There's no recipe. As long as you want to excel at something and you do want to contribute to society and also make sure that you find your balance, whatever that is, then it's good. But I don't usually encourage the young people I teach to just wait until the normal comes back. No. And I do push them very hard to find what they can be very good at, because I don't think anybody should wake up in the morning and want to be mediocre. I don't think that's a good goal to have. Now, you don't have to be always good at everything, but at least you should aspire to give it your all and to be dedicated and passionate and learn as much as you can.
Ingrid, what inspired you? Because I know you came to this country, right, as I did. So I do have the accent, and you came as adult after what? After college? What point in life did you?
At
26. Beautiful, beautiful. And you did
and I didn't speak one word English, by the way.
That was my case. So we've done something, right? At the same time, Ingrid, so you started in New York, in Columbia? You were a fellow?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How
I did my fellowship there and the residency, but I want to make one more point because what you mentioned, I had not even seen a computer or an ATM either. So people that feel discouraged, when I came, I had never seen an ATM. I didn't know how to use a computer. And I remember Kinko's, I think I shared with you. I had to do my resume. I didn't know how, and I had to teach myself, and I still made it. I'm alive.
And 25 cents a copy of that page? That was expensive. That was expensive at the time. So fantastic. How did you move from medicine to technology? Because again, lots of fields are merging now. And again, for people who are starting their careers, they have to expand the mind and apply skills and mindset, again, they own, right, to the areas that are in demand now. So how did you make that leap?
Well, I think that's probably a great example of when we say digital transformation has to be accompanied by human transformation. I think that's probably what happened to me. I noticed it's actually now exactly 10 years ago. I was back then a full clinician, full researcher, nothing else was in my mind. And I was very fortunate to be able to do an executive MBA in healthcare because at that time we had a major shift in healthcare, right? The Affordable Care Act and to push towards value-based care, and the electronic medical records were being implemented, believe it or not. So I felt like I needed to have these extra skills because otherwise I felt like I couldn't understand the 360 life cycle of everything that was happening in the healthcare ecosystem. So then I started to learn a little bit more. And within 2 years, I realized that I wanted to dedicate myself to healthcare administration. And then while I was there, I realized that technology was like advancing at a pace that was leaving all our regulatory, at that time I was chief of compliance, right? So imagine, totally big gap between regulatory compliance, particularly in healthcare, and then all the advances in technology. And I was looking for solutions, particularly value-based care, population health, precision medicine at that time were bubbling, right? That was several years ago. So I tried to learn more about what emerging technologies could provide the solution to our problems and to our pain points. And that's how I stumbled on blockchain, and I was hooked. That's it. So once I learned about blockchain and ledger technologies, I became very involved with that and passionate. So I now am considered like a big advocate for mindfully and ethically deploying blockchain solutions for the right use cases. I always emphasize that. It doesn't fit everything. So I always emphasize you need to do a very solid feasibility analysis for blockchain because it doesn't fit everybody. It's the same way like we always joke, you don't need a fighter jet to go to Publix to buy something, right? You can just walk. But for certain reasons, you might need a fighter jet. So same thing, you don't need to always deploy blockchain. And then I, of course, became much more involved also with AI and nanotechnology, and then I morphed into quantum. So that's the evolution, the transformation.
Amazing journey, amazing, Ingrid. Okay, for people out there, be inspired, okay, because it's all in human reach. It is definitely not all of us as talented as Ingrid, but point is that if we get what we have, right, and work with what we know and expanding, learning, upskilling ourselves, right, just being curious. Ingrid, what about the curiosity? What led you from medicine to blockchain? To me, it's two different universes, but look how comfortable you are in both worlds. And you are in a lot of way evangelist, you're in a lot of way advocate, okay, for the latest and greatest, right, in both. Mm-hmm.
Well, I do think you're touching on an important point that someone recently asked me on an interview too. Why do you do all these things? Why are you not focused? And I go, well, in my mind, I'm very focused because they all fit in a global ecosystem. And every single thing I do in the not-for-profit arena is about digital advocacy, digital fluency, right? Digital literacy, And it's supposed to all help the sustainable development goals. So in my head, it all fits beautiful in a giant puzzle. I do want the emerging technologies to be a catalyst and a gateway to help us with all these problems that we've been complaining about for 100 years or more. So I do believe that if we do focus on digital literacy and bridging that digital divide, all of us, not just some people, we can actually move the needle. And we proved it now during the pandemic, when people broke those silos, right, and transcended geographic and regulatory boundaries, we could actually expedite things. Take the vaccine development as an example, right? We had the technology and the know-how for many years, but because of all those hurdles and barriers, we couldn't do it. But now apply that to all other illnesses. Let's just take healthcare, right? We have Alzheimer. I posted recently, people still don't understand that COVID is not the top one killer. We have 16 diseases before that that have been killing people and hurting people and have been chronically plaguing generations, right? So if we learn from this and apply the same global collaboration and deploy technologies mindfully again and ethically appropriate, we could actually advance faster. Not that we can solve everything, but certainly we could solve more than what we've been solving so far with just keeping silos and everybody just trying to do their own thing as opposed to collaborate. So sorry, I just wanted to make that point. But
no, this is fantastic. Yeah, Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. In fact, I would subscribe or tune into you because I think you speak some common sense. You know, everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, a lot of people just tune into the media and they see, oh, COVID is the worst thing ever. And it's really not. Yes, we need to be careful, but you're right, Ingrid, there's a lot other diseases and things that have long-term effects that we need to solve today versus, you know, this hysteria over something, you know, that has really driven a lot of people a little bit insane, I should say. Maybe that's a little extreme, but a lot of us are trying to stay sane in this during this time.
I just want to clarify, we're not saying not to give it all the attention it deserves. What I'm trying to say is that we need to learn and not neglect all other things, because what has happened is everybody's focusing all resources now just on this and are neglecting Alzheimer, dementia, diabetes, chronic heart disease, all the infectious diseases that, for instance, in Africa, they're still struggling with things that we had solved 50 years ago. So why are we, all I'm saying is that we need to be balanced, focused, and learn from this, and not just dedicate all the resources now to this and drop everything else, because then we're going to fix this and still have the consequences from all the others. That's all I'm trying to say. I don't mean to minimize.
No, you didn't.
And coming from futurists like yourself, Ingrid, that you have this holistic view, right, on humanity plus tech and problems that we're solving with the tools in hand right now, right, and problems that we're creating by not focusing on other things. Okay, this is amazing takeaway, I think, from this talk. So we are at the top of our hour here. Ingrid, would you summarize a couple of points to leave our audience with? We did talk about a lot of things.
Well, I think you touched on a few, but if we summarize, I think always, learn, never cease to learn. 2, don't get complacent. Always think for the next few years ahead. 3, I don't think that excuses work. You always can find something to contribute to society. Something. You must be good at something and find that something. And then I think the other part is don't let anybody tell you that something is not possible, because I was told from very early on that I think too big, that's not possible, you should do only one thing, and it is certainly possible. So I think everybody needs to find their own pathway. So don't listen to people that try to discourage you. You take it in, you listen to the feedback, but don't get off if you know you have your vision and your passion and what motivates you. That's all I can probably say as a summary.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. I had fabulous time this Friday afternoon. Those who are listening to us, we will be on air every Friday, this time, 1 p.m. Eastern. Ingrid, I appreciate your contribution today so very much. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you for inviting me, both of you, and I appreciate the work you both do. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.